All right, guys, here in downtown Albuquerque with Austin and Linsey. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing good.
Good.
Great.
Just had a pretty cool brew day.
Yeah.
So let's talk to everybody about the beer we're brewing here. But before we get into that, let's talk about Rio Bravo. And you guys can decide who gets to go first on Rio Bravo.
Lead the way, Linsey.
All right. Well, Rio Bravo Brewing Company. It's
your dad's.
It's my dad's.
And mom's.
Yeah, it's my parents. So I was kind of wrangled in here by force. I've been brewing in the back for 3 years, almost 4 years now. And I started at the front, helped build the company from the bottom up. And it's a really fun, intense, family-owned business. It's a lot of family. My sister runs the marketing with her fiance, and then my parents are always here.
Yeah,
but it's been awesome to see the company grow. And since Austin joined the team, he's had a lot of great brews he's brought to the table, and he's been fun to learn from.
Awesome.
And yeah, we're having fun.
So you guys have been in business 3 years?
No, we actually turned 7. He bought the company, he bought the building in 2014, and that was the year I graduated from high school. And so luckily for him, none of my friends or I had important jobs, so he could just pay us to come clean up everything. And
awesome.
Burn weeds and all sorts of things. All of my friends were like, this is awesome.
It sounds like this place was quite the cleanup deal. This is in kind of a very industrial part of Albuquerque, which is a super cool town. We're having a great time over there. And
lots of great breweries.
Good breweries, good restaurants, good Mexican food, New Mexican food.
New Mexican food.
It's so good. But this used to be, your dad was telling me, a Firestone, like truck and tractor
it
tire
was a
facility.
Firestone factory built in the 1940s.
And just such a cool place. The bones on this place are just awesome.
Yeah, so downstairs is actually the original concrete of Firestone.
Oh.
All that green that you see.
Yeah.
Randy polished it up so it looks pert nice.
Yeah, a lot of the concrete stuff looks cool around here. But probably people looked at it back then and thought, who could put a brewery in this place? And it turns out to be a perfect brewery location.
Now it's perfect. At the time, we were going for a Cheers-esque type vibe. And my dad just full sent with buying this building and came to show all of us, and we're like, how are we going to fill this place out? So it was interesting the first couple of years, getting our feet on the ground. We'd have a bunch of people in here, but because the building's so big, it just felt so empty sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I went crazy with all the plants, and our name started growing, and so now it's full.
Yeah, that's cool. Busy down here. Beers are great. So anyway, good job, guys, on the beer and the place and all that kind of stuff. So, but let's get into you guys a little bit. Austin, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got to here at Rio Bravo.
I graduated college, was looking for a brewing job, to say the least. That's what I wanted to go to.
Yep.
Industry-wise. At the time, I lived in Colorado. I had
gotta love that.
Taken a job at Coors, so I was supposed to start at Coors on Monday, and then had another offer from Rio Bravo on Saturday evening, and said, sorry, Coors, as much as, being in the malting area, I think I'm going to take on being assistant brewer because, everybody wants to brew beer.
Yeah. Well, probably not a bad decision. Cheers to that. I worked at Coors for 18 years, so I think Rio Bravo is kind of a fun place to be.
It is. We have the capacity for creativity.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of fun, different, experimental beers.
Yeah, and definitely some good ones. We're drinking
this is Freak Juice. This is our house hazy IPA.
Yeah.
But do you have the peach tea?
I'm drinking, it's a peach tea ale on nitro.
Oh, wow.
And so we steep black tea as well as add peach juice. I'll get you one next.
It's like
That's all. You got to have that one next.
Yeah.
It's Snapple, but on crack.
It's good. On
This
crack
one's
and
great, too.
nitro.
Really good beer.
A double whammy.
Well, cool. Thanks, Austin. Lindsay, tell us about you a little bit. I know you're part of Pink Boots Society New Mexico chapter, right?
Yes, I've been a part of Pink Boots for almost coming on 4 years now.
Awesome.
The New Mexico chapter is a great group of women. I've become really close friends with a lot of them. They're all pretty badass ladies.
Awesome.
Last year, I actually got the pleasure to host the Pink Boots brew here at Rio Bravo.
That's what you were
which
saying.
was awesome.
And what kind of beer did you guys produce then?
We did a Belgian golden ale.
How was it, Austin?
It was
pretty good.
It was good. It was good and it was strong
Was it?
because when came brew day, all the ladies came in full force with all their cases of beer to sample. And on my second mash-in, I was not watching the silo, and we went like a good 300 pounds over in malt. So it got to be a
Pretty
nice,
strong, really strong
beer.
ale.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, I thought Austin did that to us today, but he corrected me. We're right on where we need to be.
Yeah, for a moment I thought he started doing that on purpose, just to make everything stronger. I was like, are you
It's
leaving
craft,
it on?
okay?
Yeah.
I didn't believe him we'd hit our gravity, but I think we were going to hit it.
Yeah, I know. Less is more.
Yeah.
More is more. What are you talking about?
So, we're bringing home a little sample of another one you guys did. You brewed one just recently.
Yeah.
Pale ale?
Yeah, our New Mexico chapter did one down the road by my friend Wesley, and it's a really good pale ale. It's called Hop Heroin, which is pretty funny.
Cool label on it.
Yeah, the label's great.
Uh-huh.
And it was fun. It's awesome to see the Pink Boots community grow over the last few years I've been involved.
How many ladies you got involved now?
I want to say like 50.
Wow.
We have a nice...
Holy
for New
mackerel.
Mexico, that's a good...
Uh-huh.
When I started just 4 years ago, it was probably like 20 of us, and now it's grown in just that short
That's
amount
awesome.
of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's due to our brewing program at Central New Mexico Community College.
Yeah.
They finally got a whole brewing system in there, and it's pretty cool. It's a nice setup. But it's really been able to bring in a lot of new, younger women to get involved with it. So it's been fun.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for having us here, guys, to do this collab brew. So this can be fun. Let's talk about the beer itself. So we decided to brew a
IPA.
We had to, right? We're brewing hops,
It's my
right?
favorite thing to drink. Can't not
Hops
do
Company
that.
here. We've got it, and your favorite beer. Had to do an IPA, but we're doing a little bit of a special IPA. Not sure we can claim this, but I think we'd call it, what would you say it is, style-wise?
IPA.
New Mexico style.
New Mexico
maybe.
IPA.
New Mexico
New
style.
Mexico
American
style.
IPA, West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
If it's brewed here, New Mexico style IPA.
Yeah, we use probably some more industry things that New Mexico for kind of that set us a little bit differently than other IPAs that you'll find across America, for sure. So.
Yeah. Cool, and we'll get into the process and stuff. But so for our really cool New Mexico style clear IPA, tell us a little bit about the ingredients and the recipe that we used.
Yeah, so we have a more higher sulfate to chloride ratio, and that's going to accentuate our bitterness. And then we did, we're shooting at the 17 Play-Doh for our starting OG. So we're kind of going for a 8%er, almost a little higher gravity than what you might see as traditional.
A nice New Mexico IPA should be.
In other words, New
Mexicans-
Mexicans slap a little harder.
New Mexicans, everywhere you go, they're like, what's the strongest ABV? Oh, I'll have that one.
Yep. And then, we want to, it's somewhat across from that California IPA that you'd get where it's really, straw golden color. And that more northern Washington where it's that darker, like, I feel like it's more mountain vibes, so we're kind of in the middle with a good golden hue to it.
Yeah.
Used a little crystal malt, a little melanoidin, a little wheat for some body and foam retention. So, and then hop wise, Amarillo for that good grapefruit, Triumph, El Dorado, Galena. What am I missing?
I think you got them all.
Little
Zeus.
Zeus for bitterness.
Yep.
And we blended that Zeus and Amarillo to, at least for the bittering addition, to see if we can get some of that good residual grapefruit, smooth bitterness.
Yeah.
And then Amarillo is pretty big on the hop side. We're really trying to drive a predominant grapefruit flavor that's filled out by some good tropical, strawberry-esque, those fun sort of flavors that you see nowadays, the new contemporary hop style.
Yeah, and we're using kind of alternative hops, right? I mean, in some ways, to what people used traditionally in IPAs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so.
we've never used Galena or Triumph.
I know, I love those. I love those.
And the
Those are my first
names,
time
just
sniffing them
like,
today.
the smell on them. Oh, the names.
Yeah.
It feels like we can't go wrong.
Well, we did a little bit of just kind of taking the pellets this morning as we got ready to we had to make some changes. I'll have to raise my hand and admit that I screwed up on the recipe, right? I was supposed to bring nugget, and somehow I forgot to bring nugget, so we had to change that up. But next time we brew this beer, we're gonna do the same thing with nugget, see the difference. But I think we're gonna be.
Yeah.
I love the idea of what we did with.
Well, it is craft.
Exactly. Me too. Well, you do. Austin made me feel a lot better. He goes, "Well, that's the way brewing is, man. You gotta change on the fly and do what you gotta do." So, but we did, and I think the mix up that we did with Zeus and Amarillo combined in the boil is going to be pretty interesting. So we were going to use nugget in the boil. And
I totally forgot to tell you, I over poured on the bittering edition by 8 pounds.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh my god.
I know that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Craft, right? Craft.
Now we really have something to fix. But anyway, earlier today we kind of took all the hops and did a little hop mix, one addition at a time in a can, just so we could get a feel for the smell. And I'll get your guys' opinion, but I thought it was fantastic. So you're probably going to tell the difference in my beer, by the way, because I've got a different beer this time. All of a sudden the beer's going to change.
Yeah.
I also have glasses on.
Oh, is that right? You didn't have
I
glasses
can
on?
see.
All right, so back to what we were talking about. So we were talking about the name of the beer.
Yes.
So we're going to talk, Linsey, a little bit more about the name. Tell us what we're naming it.
We're naming it Tattoo 95. The reason for that is because I had the pleasure of meeting the Mill 95 crew a while back, and it was during CBC, and I was in full force to get the Mill 95 logo. Yet, for any of you that have been to CBC, sometimes you indulge yourself into too many liquids, and then you just forget about the things you planned. But Faye has brought us back together again.
That's right.
And we are about to go get that too right after this interview.
So you're going to put a Mill 95 tattoo and hop cone, get a tattoo. Why Mill 95 tattoo?
Well,
and by the way, we're not pushing you to do that, right?
Oh, no. This is all free will. I've always wanted a hop tattoo. I've got a barley tattoo.
Awesome.
But I was planning to get one even before I had met you guys, just because I organize all the hop boxes all the time, and I was like, I could just envision that on my leg. And so, plus you guys have great hops. And so I just wanted to get it done, and then I met you guys, and I was like, okay. And then you guys show up here, and I'm like, all right, this is destiny.
And we're brewing a beer.
Yeah.
And it's a New Mexico IPA.
Yep.
So it's just fate, I guess.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
Cheers! Here's to your tattoo. Again, you don't have to do that, but
it's by my
we're stoked
own
about
free
it.
will.
But
Don't worry.
for sake of doing that, we're going to name the beer Tattoo 95. So cool.
All right.
Gives us a good story anyway.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I got a drink now. All right, so we've talked about the name of the beer. We've talked about you guys. We've talked about Rio Bravo. We've talked about the recipe. Let's talk about the hops that we're going to put in the beer, although we've talked about what they are. Let's talk about where and when we're putting them in and why. So we did a first edition. We actually did some in the mash.
Yeah, we due to the yeast that we brought in for this beer, we wanted to maximize our pre-thiol components, and in doing so, we threw them in as a mash addition, which, you know, in hopes to keep that precursor for thiols that our yeast can on the back end kind of produce more aroma or thiol flavor for us to accentuate the hop profile.
Yeah, let me ask you a little bit more about that. So first, the hops we put in there were Saaz and Cascade.
Yep.
And why Saaz and Cascade? Because we talked about what we would put in there.
Those have kind of both been tested to have those precursor components for the yeast to metabolize and output.
Yep.
They're higher in that category. And then the other hops that we used were...
Well, before you go there...
Oh, I'm jumping the gun.
You're jumping the gun on me. We're going to talk a little bit about...
Chill.
Just slow down. Just
I like to go fast, okay? This is a fast-paced environment.
We want to know a little bit more. Yeah, no, so we're talking about the hops we put into the mash, and it's all about the thiols, and it's about the yeast. So talk a little bit about, we didn't really get into the yeast earlier.
Yeah,
so.
Yeast is a really big driving component of beer. We brought in for just a one-off our Dice Roll IPA, which won a silver in the Imperial Hazy category. We brought this yeast in as a new version specifically for that component to drive more flavor, more aroma, more punch. We did that. We won a silver, so why not test it in a more West Coast American style IPA?
And what do you call the yeast?
This yeast is called Cosmic Dust. It's been people might not like this, but genetically modified to have the IRC7 triggered on, which is the metabolization of the pre-thiol cursor to output more thiols in your product. It is just a modified London Ale 3 strain, which for us, that is actually our house yeast strain. So it shouldn't be, we shouldn't see too many differences, but we should see an enhanced difference.
Cool. So moving on from what we did in the mash, and which was really related to the yeast and where we're going with that. But we did another edition at 90 minute was the next one, I believe, right?
Yeah, so we did a large sort of charge of our bittering edition for 90 minutes. We did a combination of Amarillo and Zeus, both high AA or alpha acid hops. Also, both have low cohumulones to provide a nice smooth bitterness. Right?
Yeah,
Nobody
I'd like
wants
to say high humulone because that's really what drives it. But
to each their own.
yeah, that's right. The inverse. That's right. But so I have to. I confessed earlier, and so I'll have to confess again. We actually weren't planning to use that as our 90 minute. We were going to use a beautiful batch of Nugget. I did that. I was supposed to bring Nugget, and I didn't bring Nugget, and I don't know how that happened. But so we had to improvise. It's kind of like the world of brewing, right?
Adapt
There's no
and overcome.
mistakes in art.
That's
Only
right.
new ideas.
Thank you. There was no mistake. It was just,
It was meant to be.
that's right. But I think it was a cool change up that we did. I'm really excited to see what we will pull out of the Amarillo in the 90 minute, as well as the bitterness, that kind of stuff. So.
Yep. And then later on in the beer, with an IPA, we want to maximize our flavor component. So we really stuck to bittering edition and then a really late edition. So we did a 5 minute and a whirlpool. That 5 minute consisted of Amarillo, which we're looking for a good grapefruit flavor. And then our whirlpool edition, which I don't want to be a spaz, but I forget what we used. Triumph?
Triumph and Amarillo.
Triumph? Okay, Triumph and Amarillo.
Yep.
So yeah, we were really shooting for a grapefruit flavor, and then that's going to be rounded out by this more tropical citrusy note with the Triumph.
Back to what we did at the Whirlpool. Whirlpool edition was
Triumph, and Amarillo.
Yeah, and so we spent a lot of time talking about the different hops and where we would put them. One of the things we really focused on is where we'd get smooth bitterness and not really harsh bitterness. So tell us a little bit about our conversations, but why Amarillo and Triumph in the whirlpool?
We're looking for that locked-in flavor. Really, those aroma attributes when you're not at a full boil. When you're boiling beer, after 5 minutes, you've just volatilized 50% of your aroma contributing flavor compounds.
Yeah.
So we're looking to preserve those, and by adding a larger whirlpool addition, we're getting more of a locked-in aroma for the longevity of the shelf life product.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about Triumph and Amarillo both really lend to provide smooth bitterness, even though you're still at a temperature that might isomerize the hops. These are hops, because of their high humulone, low cohumulone, are going to deliver nice smooth bitterness. And one of the things we didn't want was over harshness in the bitterness.
Yep, we wanted a really smooth drinking IPA. You didn't want to turn anybody off by searing their taste buds too bad. Definitely want to be noticeable that it's an IPA with bitterness, but nothing that's going to overwhelm a consumer to be like, oh my gosh, I'm fried.
Cat tongue.
So you also had, we had a lot of conversations in AB ratios, alpha and beta acid ratios, and looked at a variety of different hops. So with that being said, I think the hops that we chose really provided a good, clean, smooth, easy, I guess, are IPAs easy drinking?
I think so.
I don't know. I suck them down on a regular basis.
Let me see.
Well, when you guys blended them all together in the can, it was such a complimentary aroma.
Yeah.
So I know it's going to be.
Yeah, it was so well-rounded with like a nice predominant grapefruit flavor, and then a good kind of dankness that came through, and that like sweet, was it, if I recall, Triumph had that like strawberry-esque, like, oh.
Yeah, it was a sweet.
I just want to put that on my pillow and just like sleep next to it. It smelled so good.
You should do that.
Do we still have that cup? I'll take that.
I do still have it
I made
downstairs.
you save it in the box so you didn't throw it away.
Make some soap with it later. Just
Yeah, that's what I told them.
distill
I was
it.
like, go get a bar of soap.
I'm glad my mix really worked. Well, but let's go to the cold side. So we use some specific hops on the cold side because they really lend themselves well to that. And we've got 3 hops going in the final dry hop. Tell us where it is and what we're using.
So we're using El Dorado, Galena, and Triumph. The El Dorado is going to be our predominant. So although we have a good enriched hot side grapefruit, we're getting this nice tropical rounding nose, and then the Galena and Triumph, just that sweet sort of other droop fruits that you have, that white melon or honeydew and strawberry are really going to round that out. And I think the yeast that we have is just going to complement that even more so. Yeah. So we're getting at a kind of dank grapefruit, yet this sweet, delectable nectar of the gods beer.
Awesome. So I'm going to take you back to the final edition, and just say it clean as we go through it. But again, we used which hops?
El Dorado, Galena, and Triumph.
Perfect. One of the things we want to do, we want to drink the wort.
Yeah, it's downstairs.
So we'll do that later, but we'll wrap it up, and then we'll come back and do a little tasting of the wort. So as we kind of wrap things up.
As they start the tasting, I'm going to have to leave because my tattoo session.
You got to get to the tattoo session now.
Start.
So we'll let you go. We'll taste the wort.
Yeah,
and you go get your tattoo.
And then I'll see you guys there.
But before you go, let me just thank you guys for a great time and
Yes,
fun brewing
of
today.
course. Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
so much
by.
for everything.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It really, truly great brewery, good fun. You guys are great,
you.
so thank you for having us. And really, I'm looking forward to. Obviously we've just
You're
knocked
gonna
out,
have
and we're going to be doing the dry hop
You're gonna have to
edition.
come back and try
I'm
it.
gonna have to
Before we
fly
sell
down to
out the-
Albuquerque and
Might want to book
come
that
drink
flight
some.
pretty quick.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, flight prices are going way up.
I
right now.
know.
But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you being here and great beers. So,
Yes.
Cheers.
cheers.
I love that as we added each addition, it completely made it way more complex, and we'd either make it less citrusy and aggressive and a little more mellow, and then you added
With Galena.
that one definitely like softened it up, but like made a different.
And then the Triumph.
Yeah.
Well, it was the Triumph first that softened it up.
Yeah.
And then we added the Galena on top
The
of it.
Galena was just like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
It was just so. It was a nice sweetness addition that
Yeah,
really.
absolutely.
When are we gonna start using that blend for bar soap? It just smelled that good, or cologne maybe. Like it was. Ooh,
It was
An
good.
essential
amazing.
oil.
Yeah, there you go.
A good mix. So we're going to cut here and we'll come back to the hops.
Okay.
And so for the next 5 minutes, we're going to talk about the name of the beer. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah. So by the way, talking about the style of beer and what we're doing, we've come up with a pretty cool name and a story with this one.
Yep.
So Lindsay will have to help me with a story, but
Yes.
just so we get the name out there.
Okay.
The name of the beer is going to be called Tattoo 95. And Tattoo 95
Yeah.
because Lindsay and I have been working on putting a Mill 95 tattoo on Lindsay for.
Quite some time now. Yeah.
So we'll ask you first. You are the one who's pushing to have a Mill 95
Oh, yeah.
tattoo, and
no
there's
force.
reasons for why.
Yeah, there's no force, I promise.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you being here. And great beer. So,
Yeah. Cheers.
cheers.